This is my third video in my career success self-help playlist. So in January 2024, first put this one up, and then that's a month this. Now it's March 2025, and I'm finally getting to this one, which is before the other two. Before I reached this point, discussing where I was a firefighter and decided to make a career change. That was if I was considered a firefighter, which I was. That was my career at the time. That's not what I had set out to do. So, is there something you should be doing differently? Or something I should be doing differently? So I'll review. After high school in 1974, choosing a direction in life. I'm going to talk about some difficulties I had with a career decision in the time after high school graduation. In 1974, after high school, I went to work as a machinist at Cessna Aircraft Company. I was very well paid. I worked hard, but I made a lot of money, and I planned to work there several years while also writing, and then attend college. My dad was delighted. I was paid for my own food, buying nice gifts for my parents. They were happy to let me stay at home and work and then start college. I'd walk to college, Friends University, practically across the street. But a buddy talked me into quitting Cessna and going to college, and he wanted a roommate he knew, not some stranger. So at the end of 74, I quit Cessna, I went to college, and in January 1975 became a roommate of my buddy from high school. 50 years ago this month, March 1975, I visited 3 different guidance counselors at 3 different colleges. One was a university. I was very impressed. Each had actually looked at my transcript and were well prepared for our meeting. And they each gave me exactly the same advice. At that time, and for years after, I thought they gave me brilliant advice. It was a few years before I realized they provided me with flawed advice, and that this distraction probably took me in the wrong direction. They each told me they thought I should major in finance. I'd make a lot of money. And they were probably right about that. In the 80s, people in finance made fortunes. My math scores were tip-top. My grades weren't always tip-top, but I had learned the math. My grades weren't because I'd argue with my teachers, and they'd grade me down for missing class and things. And I was recruited to join Mensa, did later join Mensa. So they thought I should major in engineering. If I didn't want to go into finance, I just had to decide whether electrical engineering, civil engineering, or nuclear engineering. Now, at that time, I thought I would go into electrical engineering, possibly nuclear engineering, and unlikely civil engineering. Now, I feel exactly the opposite. I'd go into civil engineering if I was younger and had more energy, and that's what I would do now. The third option, I just read 2 books. I had this one, Paul de Kruif, Microbunters. I had that in my hand just the other day. I can't find it now. The other book I read was The Making of a Surgeon by William A. Nolan, MD. And I still have that book. It's right here. Nolan became a physician and surgeon. Lyncrope Hunters was about medical research. Now, patient care and research are two completely different things. Now, I'd been thinking about a medical career since 1971. I was a member of my high school's Future Medical Careers Club. This is a page from my sophomore yearbook. Now, this person mentions here Janet C. She did become a nurse, and that's her right there, Janet. She became an RN, and until recently, I think she may still be working as an RN. Now, unfortunately, even though at one time I knew all these people and they knew me, in this photo, top of my head there, that's me. You can't see my face, but that's me, all right. I'm listed in all the things, sophomore yearbook. So it wasn't brand new to think about going into a medical career like an MD or a PhD, and if I went into research, possibly both. I'm aware of one guy, he earned his MD and his residency. He earned a PhD in epidemiology, and his residency was in preventive medicine. All right, in March 1975, all three guidance counselors said the same thing about this medical route. Ever worked around sick or injured people? Nope. They said a couple of months ago, January 1975, this is true, the first Kansas certified emergency medical technicians went to work here in Kansas. You can apply to that course, but there's already a waiting list. You can probably get into a certified nurse assistant course immediately and start working in a hospital and emergency room, then become an EMD. With your academic credentials, you shouldn't have any problem with admission. Go get some real world experience, then decide. No problem. A couple months later, school ended. I went to a regional medical center and said I wanted to apply to a certified nurse assistant program. To my total shock, the staff were rude. They said that class was already closed, next. I was literally shoved aside. The guy behind me, the woman who I had spoken with, started talking to the guy behind me. He just pushed me. And I didn't want to get into a fist fight there, so I just left and I went to the other regional medical center in Wichita, and they were polite, but said I missed the deadline. They were not taking applications, but I could come back and apply in 3 months. I continued checking around, and there were no openings in any certified nurse assistant program. I needed a summer job, so I went out and was immediately hired as a custodian and maintenance man for building complex. I was a low man, so I had all the worst jobs. In the fall, I thought about going back to school, but the issue would remain, and I didn't have any actual medical experience with the sick or injured. So I decided to apply to a nurse assistant program, and thought they would admit me, and I was wrong. That's also what I started realizing. All these counselors are wrong. I thought I'd be in it in the summer and get my medical experience and come back in the fall. I couldn't get into a nurse assistant program. So my application was rejected, and I wasn't even on the wait list. And this is because their standards were not the same as the standards of college and university guidance counselors. I did inquire and eventually speak with someone who told me why I had been rejected. Academic success is all well and good, but you've worked as an aircraft factory machinist at Cessna and as a building complex custodian and maintenance man. The people we admitted were volunteers at hospitals or nursing homes or on ambulances or something like that. Show us something like that and you may be admitted. Now, there was a transition period with EMTs since the licensed EMTs just started in January. There were a lot of ambulances that there just were hardly any certified EMTs. So, there was a transition, and eventually all ambulances had at least one EMT. So next I went to apply for a position in the next available EMT course. And I had missed the deadline, but I was hoping they'd accept my application. Maybe I'd just skip being a nurse assistant and go directly to being an EMT. They accepted my application. Now, it was just paperwork. And there was no computer. Computers were not yet part of the process. So while waiting to hear, I took a better paying job, still as a custodian and maintenance man at a mall. And when time came, I learned my EMT application was rejected. And for the same reasons. We're accepting people to become EMTs who are already firefighters or who are already working on an ambulance. You've worked as an aircraft factory machinist and a custodian and maintenance man. Academic credentials are all well and good, but you've not shown you should be an EMT. I thought about what to do for several days. I was missing college. It was the fall of 1975. I thought I'd become a nurse assistant and then become an EMT. Now I thought I'd be in class. But now 1975 was on its way out. I had no more college hours and no experience in healthcare. I thought about I could just go back and major in finance or engineering. But my decision was to go to the American Red Cross and sign up for every first aid course they offered. Then I started volunteering for the Red Cross. So I took Red Cross first aid courses and related courses for months through the rest of 75 and well into 76. Eventually, I volunteered for driving disabled people around in the Red Cross wheelchair van, volunteering for the Bloodmobile, volunteering for the Red Cross ambulance, and volunteering for the Red Cross hotline program. It's a telephone crisis center, suicide prevention, and drug overdose. They had all kinds of books about drugs and even household medications, accidental poisonings. Now, you might think someone with 3 days of training wouldn't be on a suicide prevention and drug crisis hotline, but I was. That was the convention at that time in 1976. Actually, I think I started there in 75 still. The times were different, era different, 50 years ago. Finally, I was admitted to a certified, or often called CNA, program starting in March 1976. Soon I was working in intensive care and in the emergency room, and I was talking with EMTs and firefighters all the time. I got into the EMT course. I became a Kansas certified EMT in 1977. After working in the emergency room for a few years and the ambulance for a couple of years, and that was the Wichita-Sedgwick County Emergency Medical Service, I went and became a firefighter, Sedgwick County firefighter EMT, and I learned rescue and firefighting, the disaster response, and planning, pre-fire planning. And that takes me to the point I discussed in my January 5th, 1924 YouTube video, Career Change. Is there something you should be doing differently? And I will link this video to that playlist. So there's really three about that career change.